In season 1, we really found our genius, which was to provide you with these digital experiences and, as I said, the tools that you need to invest with confidence in cannabis. So I want to say thank you. Thank you to the 10,000 plus people that have registered or tuned in to our shows over the last few months.
Because they hung out on the wall, they called themselves the Waldos. They gathered every day at 420 to smoke cannabis, and during the day, as they passed each other in the hall, the greeting was, "Hey, see you at 420?
I'm Cody Sanchez, and what do we do here? We question everything. That's the idea. Get to the truth through the noise.
Well, when I got in the space in late 2014, I know that's not that long ago, but in cannabis, it seems like it might be a century ago. Couldn't really advertise in newspapers and the radio about cannabis, CBD.
I'm the founder and CEO of Fourth Movement. We are a platform by which people who qualify for social equity, we find and vet.
I actually started my very first investment through Arcview. I invested in Ebu when it was worth $10 million, and it sold last year for $490 million to Canopy.
I think one of the most critical instrumental moments I had in my public policy career was to meet with Sal Pace, Coloradan, that many people on this call know, who convened a group of people around the room in Colorado Springs.
I'm Steve Hawkins. I direct the Marijuana Policy Project, and I've spent 30 years of my career working on issues of policy at the state and federal level.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see some familiar faces in the audience. We're hovering between anywhere from 400 to 500 people on this call, and we have more than 50 questions that are coming in.
And thank you to the whole Arcview community. I'm honored to be a part of it and that Arcview invested in us. The Arcview Members Fund came in on Garden Society, and I'm just honored to be part of the family. So thank you very much.
Vesa Oils, we are a CBD company based out of Colorado. And, we specialize in organic, pain relief.
All right. Welcome to Arcview's 420 celebration. I'm really glad that you are joining us. We've got a lot of people registered for this, and what a bizarre and interesting 420. This one will definitely go down in the history books.
In the beginning, we were the guys underneath the football grandstand, smoking a doobie, wondering what we're doing here.
You guys are in high school at this time?
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Before electricity. This is when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
And in cannabis in the House of Representatives, we have moved together for a decade on a bipartisan basis to make some significant progress.
At their heart, at the sort of 10,000 foot level, what these social equity programs are intended to address are an applicant's experience of harm from disproportionate policing and enforcement of cannabis laws.
I'm so excited to have partnered with Southern University to be the first historically Black college and university to launch both CBD and a THC medical marijuana products. So just having that platform itself has been just my own blessing and the way to give back to a community that gave to me.
One or two pieces of advice you could give to these women that are listening today?
Get with your peeps, join a community these are the people that you want to run with, that they are like-minded individuals. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And don't go at it alone.
I think any industry has an obligation to understand the history of this country. Every entity has the responsibility of owning up to what's been done for over 400 years.
I was introduced to, a facility full of mothers and their children with, debilitating health conditions. And cannabis was literally keeping these kids alive. So that really, sparked my interest into, understanding more about how cannabis could be effective on a medical level.
I think that Arcview has a very unique role to play. We sit at the intersection of cannabis and capital in this industry. I would encourage any of our investors to really start thinking hard about what you're investing in, how you're investing, how you're showing up in the industry, and come to us, use us as a resource.
Good afternoon, everyone. And wow, wasn't that a great recap of season 1? Just really inspiring to see everybody there and contributing their time, their thought leadership. And I have a treat. So season 2 is kicking off today, and it is with my favorite topic, which is technology. And what, you know, as an investor, just personally, I've looked at, turned down, and invested in a fair number of technical innovations. And I have to say, one observation that I have for this cannabis space is that we have historically focused on solving the problems of today. And I think we may be close to jumping the shark on this one. And interestingly, Deloitte, I was going to say Detroit, that's where I'm from. Deloitte published their 2020 Insights report. And I'd like to share some of those and see how we, as the cannabis tech industry, could start looking at things just a little bit differently. For example, most of our tech has been transactional. It has been point of sale, logistics, data capturing, things like that. But if we go beyond what's new to what's next, we could evolve our thinking and technical roadmaps to be more in line with what other industries are doing right now. They're becoming insightful versus being just transactional. So what if we move from point of sale, let's just say, to digital reality? What if we started enhancing our supply chain with blockchain? What if we started incorporating emotional intelligence and focusing on the micro-personalization of data versus just capturing data points? And Louis, I see you're trying to go back and forth on the presentation side, but don't worry about it. No worries. We can come back to the prezzo later, because the point is that we are looking at technology 2.0 in this industry. And so another area to look at is compliance software. And we have a chance to evolve that too. We can move beyond just sort of checking these regulatory boxes, but to start to instill trust and ethics as we incorporate things like AI and tracking breadcrumbs, right? And building off on the personal information that we're gathering about cannabis use and cannabis users in our industry. And what about research? You know, right now we haven't really spent a lot of time on technology solutions for research, but I see that changing and evolving, especially as we move into federal legalization and we're able to really open up research and development. And so things like digital twins, technology we can use to simulate the physical world could become really interesting in our space. So what tech visionaries are doing today is that they are doing this thing called backcasting. So they're planning today's technology decisions and investments in concert with tomorrow's likely ends. And we, as investors in the cannabis space, should be doing the exact same thing. Our market is projected to be $50 billion. And it deserves our forecasting, our backcasting to make that happen. So here we go, folks. Are we ready for Cannabis Tech 2.0? I certainly am. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you today Jean Sullivan. She is our moderator extraordinaire. She is a longtime venture capital investor, and she is proud to say that she and her New York-based fund were early to see cloud-based computing and software as a service as the long tail. And she is, again, early to invest in cannabis industry and in technology. Talking about the coming of age of technology in cannabis is really in Jean's sweet spot. So thank you, Jean, for moderating today, and please take it away, season 2.
Thank you so much, Kim. Hello, everyone. I am Jean Sullivan. As you just heard, I pride myself on being early. Software as a service, we were early to source and invest in some of the best of breed software and internet companies, data aggregation and e-commerce companies. Now, I didn't just read about boom, bust, boom, but I was in the room when it happened. And so I've said this for many years too. You know, sometimes you can think you're in on the ground floor, but you find out you're in the basement. So it is my pleasure and our pleasure as Arcview to introduce you to three people who are definitely on a Zoom opportunity with their companies, with their investors, investing. Jeb Spencer, who is managing partner of TVC Capital in San Diego. Now, Jeb, you are a long-time and successful venture capital investor in San Diego, now starting to invest in some very interesting cannabis tech platforms. Join us and tell our member audience about your journey from the tech world as you start to play in cannabis.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Thanks, Jean, and thanks for allowing me to be part of this. I don't know about the successful part, but that's okay. But yeah, with TVC Capital, we invest and acquire software companies, generally with about 10 million of revenue. The cannabis space is one that we have been looking at for five or so years. We talked to some of the early players that came out of legalization in Colorado, and we really just couldn't find companies that, as Kim said earlier, were focused on subscription revenue versus transaction revenue, and companies that were kind of at that 10 million mark, which is really ideal for us. And then also companies that we couldn't find companies that had really strong professional management that ideally had come out of the cannabis space. And all of that started to change over the last year or so. And I appreciate the comment on the 2.0 change in what's going on, because we've just seen an absolute sea change in what's going on in the industry as far as growth rates, the amount of revenue, and if this focus on annual recurring revenue versus transaction revenue. So we're just delighted to be part of this. We've talked to 40 or 45 companies in the space. We feel very fortunate to have closed deals with both GrowFlow and SpringBig since the pandemic occurred. And we're just very interested in continuing to take part in the industry. We will still do our investing in the other SaaS verticals and horizontals, but we intend to make cannabis a big part of what we're doing going forward.
It's a great story. We welcome you to our cannabis industry, Jeb.
Thank you.
Speak about dynamic and seasoned CEOs that you're searching for. Well, you found one in Jeff Harris, CEO and founder of SpringBig, Boca Raton, Florida. So, Jeff, I am so proud that I've known you and SpringBig for several years now as we made a small investment in one of your earliest rounds. You were smart enough to see that the cannabis industry needed a marketing and loyalty platform, and you had already built that in the non-cannabis world. Tell us your story about figuring that out and forging your way into cannabis.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's great to be here. It's great to be amongst Jeb and Chris. Excited to be part of this event. In terms of what my experience was, I started a loyalty marketing company outside of cannabis about over 20 years ago, designing and managing data-driven marketing programs for retailers, credit card issuers, healthcare companies, etc. And what I like to say, experience is another word for we were able to learn a lot, make a lot of mistakes, grow from those mistakes, and continue to be successful in that business. And as we saw that business continue to grow, and I hired a management team to run that business, we saw an opportunity to take what we learned and to build something for the cannabis industry, because we felt that there was a dearth of opportunity or a dearth of excellence from a technology standpoint in the cannabis industry. So in 2017, we launched our technology offering to the cannabis industry, and it was the right time to be here. And it's been a great ride since. We've learned a ton. This industry is a bit different than most, but we've learned a ton. And I believe we're adding a lot of value to a lot of our retail and brand clients that we're working with.
What a great combination for you, Jeb, and his magnificent fund, and you as you grow and really scale your company. It's an impressive story. Chris Lane, Airfield Supply, your CMO in San Jose. Now, tell us about Airfield. Tell us the tie-in and what you're doing, with the Airfield even name, but also you were formerly with Fiverr and you were chief marketing officer. It's a magnificent multi-billion-dollar market cap company. Tell us about Fiverr and your transition then to helping to build some marketing and branding for Airfield. Give us that story.
Yeah, hi. First of all, thanks for having me, everyone. Thrilled to be here. So yeah, my real background on Airfield real quick. So as you mentioned, we're one of the largest single site dispensaries in America. Pre-COVID, we were doing about 1,500 people a day through our location across in-store, e-commerce, and delivery. Obviously, with COVID and everything that happened there, it created a really interesting scenario for us where we essentially spiked and revisited our ability to accelerate our growth on the e-commerce and the delivery side, sort of replicating again, I think what a lot of us are talking about here, that cannabis catching up to the modern consumer. And so that was, that's been a huge piece of what we've been working on over the course of that. But yeah, my background really has been a lot of brand strategy and brand development across a variety of sectors, largely based on technology, right? So I cut my teeth in the agency world for about a decade, working with everybody from Adobe to Google and the New York Times and brands that have large established stories and are really leveraging data and leveraging experiences to create their next piece, right? They don't necessarily need brand awareness. They need education, conversion, and retention when they're looking at things. Or you have brands like Fiverr, whereas the global had a brand for 3 years leading up towards the IPO just last year. And it was really all about, building a new way. So, a lot of that technology-driven brand storytelling is what we've tried to bring into Airfield. I was lucky enough to sort of start my relationship with Airfield about 5 years ago. It's a 10-year-old dispensary. 10-year-old business across retail and product business. But started about 5 years ago working on the rebrand when it went from the medical marijuana entity that was South Bay Healing Center over to what is now Airfield Supply Company. So working with the CEO, Mark Matlich, on the naming strategy and brand positioning, brand identity, design, all of those kind of things to create this new experience. And it was all around this idea of, what is the cannabis purchasing experience and brand of tomorrow? To the whole point of this, right? It's, I'm a firm believer in the Wayne Gretzky skate to where the puck is going theory, not to where you are. And so we wanted to really look at that and say, our reference point is not green crosses and zigzaggy, leaves and purple colors and snakes and all that kind of stuff, which is great. It's fun. And it created this very sort of like initial industry. But we wanted to say, okay, what are we creating that is going to make you as excited about going to shop there as it is going to Nordstrom or going to other high-end retailers or aesthetic environments where you feel a benefit from it. And so we wanted to create that. And obviously my weird Zoom background shows a little bit of that, but it's about creating an aesthetic around the concept of taking off and around building a brand bones. I mean, my belief as a brand person is that if you do not have a brand, you can ultimately only scale so far. Your acquisition and your retention becomes incredibly challenging if you have no awareness. And so we wanted to build a brand that people could identify with, they could create an emotional connection to, first and foremost. And then you layer into that technology to look at how you acquire customers and how you maximize their lifetime value, how you retain them, how you do everything that, that we'll talk through today. So it was really, Airfield is this combination of art and science. When I joined full-time about 1.5 years ago after leaving Fiverr, the first thing we looked at was the tech stack. We looked at the data that we had and we said, what do we build with it? How do we build something that is personalized and experiential and mirrors what you can get in a physical environment in a digital world? And that's where it all really started. Yeah.
I love it. But Chris, get us just a little closer to the customer experience. I've been up and down California to various amazing dispensaries, but I haven't found my way to San Jose, which I do plan to do on my next trip west. I'm in New York City. Feel sorry for us. We don't have any of that. Yeah. And no flower, no edibles, no nothing here. And so hopefully that's going to change in 2021. But tell us that, because I've had the amazing experience of, I know this is ordered by municipality, of getting a basket and putting whatever I want. Are you allowed to do that in your store?
So we don't do basket shopping. And really, we don't do basket shopping for a few reasons. One, regulations, but two, more importantly, we believe in the customer interaction experience that is really important to us. Cannabis is, as we all know, it is a new market. There's certainly old ways that it's always been consumed and enjoyed, and we all had fun days in that as well. But when you're looking at it as a retail industry, it's very new, and so the shopper is equally pretty new. So for us, we have a very, very big belief in the consultation aspect of it. You can see sort of in the screen behind me, not to keep referencing that, but a variety of different sort of consultation stations where you can go talk. We try to keep an experience where you can, obviously pre-COVID, you were able to grab baskets of certain items. But with the cannabis and with what you're doing, we want to create an opportunity where you can actually have a conversation with a knowledgeable individual, get a product recommendation, compare products, get a chance to smell them, experience them, and then move from there. Same thing in the digital world. We're really looking at how do you build that rich sort of exploratory experiential environment that creates it. So for us, the experience starts before you even walk in the door. It's the aesthetic of the building. We've designed it to essentially look vaguely like the experience of visiting an airport, right? Of taking off, quite literally, in another context. And so when you walk in, you get reference to materials, airline seatings. We have literally like abstracted pieces of planes that are around. And the idea was to create that sort of aesthetic environment without being too pushy about it, to get it there. So, our desire is that anyone who walks in the door, leaves with even more information and having had some experience that can drive them. Because ultimately, that's what creates brand loyalty, right? Technology can get you in the door, it can convert you, it can do all those things. But brand loyalty is going to come from creating an emotional connection. And if people feel like they're valued and they're gaining something during their time of purchase, right? Where that exchange of value for information or dollars for information, however you want to look at it, is delivered, then you get to a really interesting place when it comes to building a brand and not just selling products.
So we think you need to be taking a look at Spring Big too. Tell us this, what kind of loyalty platform do you think is good enough for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I love me some Spring Big. Jeff and I have had several conversations about it. So when I came in, we built out our tech stack using Salesforce for our CRM stack. And so we run everything off of Marketing Cloud and Sales Cloud through a central hub there across SMS, email, loyalty, everything powers through that. I think there's a lot of different approaches. And frankly, I think the loyalty side of things is a fantastic retention tactic that, we love playing with, especially from like A/B testing and driving retention. Can you play with that retention cycle? Can you shrink that window, of traditional retention? Can you move people in customer groups? I think there's a variety of things there. We power it through a different platform, though I love Spring Big, and there's always opportunity to collaborate.
Jeff, I see this as your next pilot here or sales. So get your wallet out, Chris. Now, Jeff, back to you. We'll come back to you for more about this technology piece in Airfield, because that's so interesting to our investors. So let's talk about that dearth of technology and the fact that you shared that you've already looked at 40 cannabis companies searching for those companies that can scale, hopefully those unicorns in time, right? So, Kim, I think, gives the marketplace an upgrade by calling it Web 2.0. I think we're still rolling around somewhere about 1.5 rev, because I am shocked, being a longtime tech investor, in the embryonic state of many of these companies. But give us your view. What did you see as you looked across the landscape? What are you looking for? What's hot, what's not in your mind about what's out there and where you're putting your binoculars on?
Yeah, okay. So I guess the first thing, and I agree with you, the thing that really surprised us was how few traditional VC growth equity. We think of ourselves as growth equity because, we're not doing startups. But we were surprised at the number of firms that we interact with, very frequently, that just either didn't have an interest in this space or were afraid to invest in this space, or they had a limited partner that had some issue with investing in this space. But, now I think we're starting to see, I thought that Tiger Global's investment in Greenbits was a big signal that this is all is going to change. And, you know, since we have invested in GrowFlow and SpringBig, my phone and my LinkedIn, you know, chat stuff is just, I can't even describe it to you. There's been just so much interest in what we've done, you know, with these two companies and why we're interested in the space, and the fact that we, you know, are sort of traditional investors with an institutional limited partner base, you know, supporting us, not individuals. So really what we've been looking for is, as what I've said before, is companies that have some scale, because again, we're not traditional VCs. We help companies when they get to that 7 to 12 million of revenue mark. And there just has been, you know, there's just not been that many of those types of companies. So of the 45 or so we've spoken with, most of them are doing 1 to 3 million of revenue. And that's pretty typical in software. It's an amazing statistic to most people, but 90% of software companies never exceed 1 million in revenue. You know, most of them get kind of stuck. And that's what we were seeing really in this space until we saw things like Jeff Harris at SpringBig, who, you know, and again, I'll highlight this, when you have professional management, you know, people who have worked in other industries and been successful, you know, that's how you get 300% growth, which, you know, I've seen only a couple times in my career. And that's what we're seeing Jeff and SpringBig doing. So, you know, as we've started to see companies that are getting to scale and also become dominant in their market. And that's the way software as a service works. When you look at the public companies across the board, the big players dominate their industry. And Chris mentioned Salesforce, so that's one that, you know, was very early on. But you think about ServiceNow, other companies like that, they sort of own the space and own their segment. And that's starting to evolve right now. And, you know, the first sign that we've really seen of that is what Jeff is doing at SpringBig. So it's incredibly exciting. I have 100% confidence that Jeff will get to 100 million of revenue over the next 2 years. Right, Jeff? You gonna give a thumbs up? So, you know, honestly, so Gene, and audience, it's very exciting. I mean, there has been, maybe you're right that it's 1.5, and hopefully it'll keep the other institutional investors out of this for a while so we can do more deals. But there's something very special happening here, and it's incredibly exciting. It's incredible.
No doubt. And as I said a few minutes ago, welcome to our cannabis sandbox, because it is so exciting. It is the fastest growing sector in the world right now, especially being deemed essential through COVID. We love that. So many of these sectors are growing at huge CAGRs. It's pretty exciting. So I'd like your opinion, Jeb, about some of your current tech CEOs. Are they even thinking of entering the marketplace? Because I believe that's what's next. I'm unafraid of big tech coming in. I'd love your opinion about that. Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Gene, I hadn't thought that much about it till you mentioned it, you know, a month or 6 weeks ago. And no, none of them are thinking about it. Literally none. Obviously, except for the pure plays like GrowFlow and SpringBig. So, you know, that I have begun to, you know, put this in front of a lot of our CEOs. We have about 16 active deals right now. So it's just not been something that people have been focused on. It's really kind of a behind the scenes industry right now that not a lot of people have been paying attention to. But like you said, it's the fastest growing sector in this country right now. So we'll continue to try to put these things in front of our other portfolio companies for sure.
Right, you can see already you're way ahead of the curve and the pack on taking your wallet out and investing. There's only a handful of seasoned blue blood VCs like you who are out there and figured this out. But where's everybody else? To build toward this 50, billion, and I believe 100 billion marketplace over the next several years, especially once either legalization or what I believe is going to happen, the power to the states, where each state can decide. And then you'll know there's already a big initiative for interstate commerce among contiguous states. That is going to blow this open. I believe safe banking will blow this open. So you're right in the right place at the right time. Hey, count us in for being a potential co-investor in some of your deals, and we're happy to deliver to you some very interesting companies, because we've been at it a long time. And you probably know this, Arcview and its members, we have invested more than $300 million in just about every cannabis company there is. So we want to be that go-to place going forward, certainly. Now, Jeff, keying in on what we were talking about, big tech and others, big tech have been the ones, see, this is where I'm fascinated, and I'd love your view. It's big tech that came up with, all the POS systems, the data aggregation, the e-commerce systems, the compliance. And we're building in cannabis these kind of standalone disparate systems. Talk to us about the moat that you can build for Spring Big that lets you maybe combine some of these technologies so that you can really build something that is that continuing best of breed platform that big tech will acquire as soon as they wake up. Give us that insight.
Yeah, I think when we started off, I think the key for us was to focus on what we really knew how to do very, very well, which was loyalty and digital communication. And we stayed on that path and focused on that path where, fast forward 3 years now, we're probably in over 16 to 1,700 locations across the country, and working with, individuals and organizations that are as tech savvy as Chris, all the way to the other side of the spectrum as well. And what makes this industry so unique is that you have the Chris's in this industry, and then you have people that understand from a gut perspective what they have to do, but are not very technology savvy and are trying to get a lot of help in figuring it out. So, now that I think we have built some scale, when we're in 1,700 locations, now we could start looking at what are the other, number one, we have to continue to evolve, right? We need to make sure that, our service offering and our software offering is meeting the needs of the Chris's out there, right? Because they're continuing to evolve. They're looking to leverage technology and data-driven tactics and strategies to drive acquisition, retention, basket growth, repeat visit, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the objectives that we're trying to help our clients achieve. But in addition to that, we're now starting to get asked, what else can you help us with? What else can you offer us? So, in the next chapter, one of the main reasons that we wanted to connect and partner with Jeb and TVC is because they have a lot of experience in how do you take something that we're doing very, very well, and how do we start expanding it, both in terms of expanding it in terms of more customers, which we think we know how to do pretty well, but widen the product offering, widen the service offering to become an even more valuable resource to our retailers. So I think the next chapter of Spring Big is going to be to make sure that we are connecting all the dots that we need to connect to allow our retailers and our brand clients to get everything that they want to get out of our software, to get everything they can. But in addition to that, figure out what are the complementary products and services that we could offer that will be meaningful to our clients, that create an even bigger moat for Spring Big. We think we have a pretty good head start, and we think we're in a position now where we can continue to grow and continue to accelerate our growth. But now, instead of just growing what I'll call, going vertically in terms of more customers, we now want to think about horizontal growth as well, which are what else can we help our clients with, and how do we make that happen?
Now, I know you've got an initiative around that with the brands. Tell us that story, because I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. Again, cannabis is such a unique market. People take for granted what you can't do in cannabis, which is kind of crazy, right? So one of the major challenges that brands in our industry have is the ability to connect directly with a consumer. In the non-cannabis world, there are so many opportunities And when I talk about brands, I'm talking about the manufacturing brands, not the retail brands, right? Where they don't have access to the customer like a retailer does. So in the non-cannabis world, you have so many tools and so many outlets and so many opportunities for manufacturing brands, take a Kellogg's or a Post or a Heinz, to be able to connect directly with consumers. In the cannabis industry, because a bunch of the outlets are off limits, there are way fewer ways to do it. So we were starting to get calls from brands saying, hey, can you help us use the database from your retail clients to connect with consumers? And we started thinking about how we can do that in a way that was going to be, meaningful for the retailer and for the brand. We also then were getting calls from retailers saying, wow, we're bearing the brunt of the marketing expense to our consumers. And is there a way for us to get some help and get some co-op help where, other people can help contribute to some of that marketing? So, listen, we're not the smartest guys in the world, but we know how to put two and two together. And we said brands want to connect with consumers. Retailers are looking for help in marketing to consumers. Maybe there's a way we could do that. So we created a platform for brands that allows a brand to create content that they want to then serve up to a retail partner that is already selling their product. The retail partner sees that content in their dashboard. And if they take that content and include it in the messaging that they're already going to be sending out to their customers, either via SMS or MMS or via email, the retailer will get a discount on that message because they're co-opting the brand's content. And the brand, who now never had the ability to get into the smartphone of the consumer, now has the ability to get their message into the smartphone of the consumer, and they'll pay a CPM price to get into the smartphone of the consumer. So brand wins because they have the ability to now finally get their message directly to the consumer, and not just to the consumer, but into the text feed of the smartphone of that consumer. And retailer wins because they're marketing a lot of this stuff anyway. And now they have the ability to market it, but get it co-funded by the brand. So everyone is winning, and it seems to be very accepted very nicely in the market, and people are starting to take advantage of it.
What a great way to expand your footprint in the marketplace too. Good for you. By the way, to our investor audience and guests, we welcome you to put any questions you might have in the chat, and we'll field some of those questions on this discussion today. But one follow-up, Jeff, how in the heck did you possibly grow HEC into about 1,500 or more dispensaries? That is not easy. That's a lot of blocking and tackling. How'd you go about that? That's an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, and first of all, we have a great team and we're very, very focused on creating a great product and providing great service. And what we made the decision very early on that even though we're a software company, this industry is a bit different and it needs a lot of hand holding and a lot of support. And we overinvested in our support organization to make sure that every customer that is a Springbig customer gets the support that they need when they need it quickly. And I think that made a huge difference because as we were growing our business, we were not the first into this industry for our specific type of software. But when we got in the industry, we heard very early on that, the companies that were doing this were not necessarily doing the best job at supporting their clients. And this is not rocket science, right? Customers who are paying money want to feel that they're getting value for that money and they want to feel that they're getting support. And we made sure to overinvest in that. And we felt, listen, it's so much harder to get a new customer than it is to keep one. Let's just make sure we make the right decisions to keep our clients and to keep them happy. And then that success fuels on itself. And although this industry is getting bigger, it's also pretty small. And a lot of industry veterans and a lot of people in the industry talk to each other. There's a lot of referrals. And when the word started to get out that, hey, Springbig has good software, but more importantly, they really know how to service and support their clients, we started seeing a downhill avalanche of opportunity because we focused on the fundamentals. And you mentioned blocking and tackling, and so much of successful business operation is blocking and tackling. If you don't have the blocking and tackling right, you could have the best ideas in the world. You're not going to be successful.
Great story. I know several of your team, and they are dynamic and always right at the ready. So good for you for building a wonderful company that is absolutely scaling. It's an impressive story. It's really great to be able to showcase you and your smart investor too. It's really a coming of age for us in the marketplace to have these best of breed platforms appear. That's what it's all about. Success is going to make more successful companies, et cetera. Now, Chris, back to you. You told us a lot about, branding and specialty branding, your background at Fiverr and all, but you didn't tell us the Tesla story. Tell us about Tesla and how that's working for you at Airfield, just part of the whole branding and gestalt of doing business at Airfield.
Yeah, the Tesla story. Well, really the beginning of the Tesla story, because I think we've only just sort of scratched the surface. But that's really just again a strategic brand decision that we've made. That as we started to look at delivery, we have our brand ethos, we have our positioning of how we like to create a consumer experience in anything, right? And when we started scaling delivery, the decision really came at the very beginning of saying, if we're going to do this, we're going to deliver in Teslas for a couple of reasons. One, aesthetically, it aligns to the brand that we are looking to create. We have a believer in an aesthetic, and a Tesla pulling up, looking nice, and doing, completing your delivery is a nice feeling for people to have. But equally and more importantly, at the core of us as a business and as a brand is looking at sustainability and everything that we can do there possibly to limit our carbon footprint impact on the world, all of those kind of things. And frankly, when we were driving fossil fuel cars around and starting to skyrocket on delivery numbers across the Bay Area, we had to take a hard look in the mirror and say, is this sticking to our ethos? And so, just from a cost analysis and from a reality analysis, it's a no-brainer. Let's create an aesthetic experience that's better. So.
Chris, you're in a great position then to cite for our discussion today some of the tech gaps that you see, because you came from a very tech-intensive world. Now you're the buyer and user of such platforms. What's missing for you? We want to know, as investors, as business owners, as entrepreneurs trying to create for the gaps, what are some of them? And I'd love Jeb and Jeff to weigh in on that too. But Chris, start us off on that.
Yeah, I don't know if 20 minutes will do it. To be frank, I think we'll probably all agree on that one. Beyond a couple of the people in the room here, there's really a lot of gaps. I think there's 2 points. One is the simple technology solutions, right? The solutions. The other is the interconnected systems, right? That these worlds live in that create that halo effect or that order of magnitude impact when it comes to a business growth and retention organization. We're starting to see things. When I came on full time a year and a half ago into the world, CRM was just not a statement in cannabis retail, right? It was there. There were some sort of specific players. There were people doing some certain things. CRM is now something that we are seeing much more clearly. But with all of them, like we said, you usually have to piecemeal it together. So looking at CRM, obviously Spring Biggest done a fantastic job with loyalty and SMS marketing. But there's players out there where what I'm looking for in this world, and what I think is really exciting about the future world, is the interconnected abilities of all these things, right? So how does your customer service strategy with your acquisition, with your retention, with everything, and most importantly, personalization, right? We should never get ever into a world. Cannabis has been guilty of blasting, right? Far too often. We need to get, and that's something we're very proud of at Airfield, is getting to a one-to-one personalization perspective. But personalization technology still is largely having to be built in a silo and then executed, right? How do you get that connectivity across digital experience, across your push and pull marketing? And then also, looking at the digital side of the world, we've all talked about it, but the limitations when it comes to media. God, can you imagine if we had shoppable Instagram and cannabis? Like, the world would be completely different. So, those are regulatory issues that we face, or policy issues that we get from our friends at Google and Facebook. That we're constantly talking with them about what we can do. But, there's huge gaps in understanding and activating customer data that are still just coming online. Big gaps in acquisition and retention within that. And I think there's also a lot of stuff that's only really being developed right now around digital experience. Again, we know with COVID that skyrocketing, anecdotally, I've heard several people, very notable people say, well, geez, like, I'm just going to get delivery for the rest of my life. Like, delivery is so much better, but it was a forcing function. And if you think about it, in every other industry in the world, on-demand shopping is just the commonplace. You order your food on demand from an app, you shop for your clothes on demand from an app, you buy whatever the hell you buy on Amazon every single day from an app, all of these things, but yet cannabis was largely stuck in a brick and mortar world. So, everyone is now sort of ramping to catch up to digital experience. And there's some platforms out there, we work incredibly closely with Trees as a POS and as a data system that funnels into all of ours. iHeartJane is building, nice e-com platforms. There's platforms being built, but the question is, are they being built with the right kind of technology, data integration, personalization, artificial intelligence, cross-recommendation, all of the things that in every other industry at Fiverr, I mean, we've talked about it there, when you entered into a world, everything you touched was designed for you. It was contextualized, personalized, prioritized, and optimized for you. That wasn't on purpose. That sounded very like one of those messaging-y things. Sorry, but so you convert it. That's all being built now. Everyone's building it from the ground up right now. It's a land race.
Let me hearken back to delivery, because certainly the COVID ordeal has just made all that happen. And a year ago, I was paired with a guy on the golf course who's the head of Prime Now for Amazon. He's in New York. And he said to me a year ago, the way people buy groceries is going to change drastically over the next few years. And then look at that. Look at how COVID just made all that happen. I have not been in a grocery store since last March, and I'm in New York City. And I love shopping for groceries online. And I know that many people love shopping, online for curbside pickup it depends on where you live, because, some places are very car friendly and some aren't. And also due to COVID and all the issues, this curbside pickup, online ordering, it's really taken off. What's your view? Will that stay? And, are you doing that now? Are you active there?
Yeah, we had launched e-commerce pickup, delivery, all of those things far before COVID, years before, as we looked at it. And to be honest, not that anyone ever benefits from a pandemic, but I think one of the things that it did for the industry was force that growth, force people to rapidly evolve the way that they viewed their business. And so for us, we had curbside implemented immediately with shelter in place once approvals were through with the county. But we also had express kiosks that we had built prior to this in a similar function to have optimized ordering and quick turn times for people, where if you don't want a consultation, you can just place it, in a digital basket and pick it up 2 minutes later. So for us, in a retail mindset, one of the things that I think COVID did was force a sort of professionalism of the reality of the cannabis industry. And by that, I mean, people had to move from thinking brick and mortar, physical location, they called it the shop, the club, these things that were holdovers from the medical marijuana days, of places that were designed by Instant to be small. And it forced them to start thinking in more of a brand and business functionality mindset, thinking about your customer base in a broad, reachable, anytime capacity. And that I actually think is really good for the industry. It's something that we were pushing for to begin with, and it allowed us to really just pour the gas on that fire more. We don't view our business as a physical location. We view it as a brand that can be interacted with in a variety of mediums, right? How you consume our content or how you engage in our shopping experience is down to personal preference. And so I think what will stay out of COVID is a reality that businesses cannot function off of a physical environment anymore, that they need to be present in every aspect of the customer experience and the fulfillment opportunities you can have. You would never imagine a Nordstrom to only have physical shopping, right? You expect online shopping. You expect same-day delivery. You expect convenience, price matching, outfit building, all these different things. So I think those things will stick. And I think, frankly, we're seeing the very, very, very beginning of it right now. We're already working on a ton of stuff to scale that in a way that is really exciting. But the direct to consumer model and personalization it's here to stay, and convenience is here to stay, which is a good thing for everyone.
That is very cool. Jeff and Jeb, weigh in on this discussion around the tech gaps that you're seeing or the things you can do. Are you thinking about blockchain, Jeff? Are you thinking about AI? Or you, Jeb, as an investor, are we ready for that? Will we be? What are you seeing in that whole realm? I think that'd be so interesting to understand.
Well, one thing that Chris mentioned, which I think is 100% true, the train has definitely left the station when it comes to ordering ahead, whether it be for pickup or for delivery. And as a retailer, I think Chris is extremely well positioned to have started so early with that. The challenge, I think, in our industry, which is different than if you're Amazon or if you're a grocery store, is there are so many products that are really not well known to the consumer. So the organizations, the brands, the manufacturers, the companies that are creating these products in this new world that we're living in have a tremendous challenge. And how are they going to be educating consumers that are not coming into the store? You know, what are the new outlets? What are the new opportunities that brands have to be educating customers about a product that they should try, a new product that's available to them? There are some ways that can happen with the digital talents that I think that our retailers have, but there's a lot that's missing there. And that's going to be probably the next big challenge for brands in this post-COVID world is going to be, how do I get my product to be better understood by the consumer that doesn't want to walk into the store? So there's a huge opportunity there, that we're thinking about and trying to help brands and retailers, because the wider the product assortment is, the better the opportunity for a retailer to build their basket, to drive more purchase and repeat purchase and more trial. And that's something that I think, although there's been such an amazing opportunity that's been driven by this, but that's something that I think has to be focused on. And I think that's the next big thing, because Chris is right. Ordering ahead is here to stay. It's here. And, I know during the pandemic, it was probably 60% order ahead, 40% in the store. It's now probably leveled off to about 35 to 40% order ahead versus a little bit more in the store, depending on what market you're in. So, but the percentage of orders or percentage of business that's now being done order ahead is so much larger than it was before.
That is so interesting. Jeb, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I guess I'll take maybe a little bit more of a academic approach to the answer. These guys are much closer to the ground floor than I am. But from our perspective at TVC, we've looked at, just like we do with every other industry, we've looked at the value chain from really start to finish and think about all the technologies that you need to get from start to finish. So, right now it's just very nascent and we're really just getting going here. So, I think about San Diego where I am and what's being done to attract people who've never been in dispensary. And the answer is there's 2 billboards on the way to the airport. That's just about it. There's no sort of pre-marketing. And then you look all the way down to the end, which is maybe, Chris, you can relate to this, I guess. You're laughing. But you get to the end, and maybe the end is tax implications for dispensaries and other manufacturers. And that hasn't been addressed. So when I think about that value chain, we have about 15 different things, and we're really just at the beginning of this. And just one other comment, I don't want to belabor it, but one of the reasons that Jeff has been so successful, and I think Chris as well, is that they built something unique and something differentiated, whether it's Tesla's or the best product and the best service, the best, service inside the dispensaries. And uniqueness and differentiation drive success. And there's just not enough of that right now. I had someone call me the other day that's friends with my brother and said, hey, we're building this technology to completely revolutionize, curbside pickup. And I was like, dude, pick something else. Because, there's a lot going on in there. So it feels like the beginning, and each of the 15 buckets are really yet to be filled because there's been so much focus on seed to sale compliance tracking, and the rest of these buckets have not had enough focus, in our opinion.
I'm with you, and I thank you for that. People ask me all the time, is it too late? I really believe it's just top of the second inning. Yeah. And just as you've shared, investors are waking up, traditional investors are waking up, business builders, entrepreneurs, and people who want to get a license, they're just waking up to the opportunity. And then consumers, they're waking up, go, oh, maybe I should try this, or they've heard about some health successes. So it is still early days, and I will underscore the fact that I, like the three of you, agree that the technology is embryonic, it's early days. That means to me opportunity to build a business that fits a gap that's needed, and there's plenty of them, and then opportunity as an investor. So that's exciting. Louis, do we have questions from our investor audience and guests?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jean. Thank you. This is Louis Hahn, VP at the Arcview Group here, and now we're going to jump into the Q&A here. There are about 100 of you on the call and quite a few questions that have come in, so if I don't get to your question, I apologize. But let's start off with a question for Chris over at Airfield. Scott McFadden is asking about, what digital channels did you use to drive delivery, since that's essentially the world that we live in nowadays. We touched on this point on this call here already with talking about how there isn't exactly access to the traditional mainstream digital channels, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Well, maybe that's not an avenue anymore since they're shut down since Sunday, right? But Jeb was saying that a lot of products and services, what they're using is just billboards at this point. So what are some tactical things that you're doing, some digital strategies that you're using to drive delivery specifically, since that seems to be the world that we'll be living in, at least for now?
Yeah, great question. First of all, we kind of look at it from two ways. We do employ more traditional methods, what I call traditional advertising, acquisition, and conversion methods than, really I'd prefer to be honest, but because of the lack of channels, typically in a scenario, we'd be running brand formist creative, acquisition and retention creative across all digital channels for this. And we do lookalike audience mapping based on what we know about known cannabis users or potential cannabis users, right? That's the big question, I think, for all of us, right? What's the next wave of cannabis user? I think we know a lot of those demographics that are really exciting. But traditional tactics, it's an interesting world because they live on an artificial life support in cannabis. And by that, I mean, with a lack of other opportunities to engage people in ways that like a typical consumer would expect it from any other industry, people search out still some of those traditional things. So, out of home continues to be a thing, even though, I have coming from a brand, global brand background, my belief in spot buying single boards as a strategic marketing play and investment is not exactly super high in confidence, but it is looking at your media mix and the traditional methods that people search out. They still search out cannabis content in print. They do look at out of home. They do look at earned media has a disproportionately high impact of value in this industry versus other ones. So PR is super important. People are actively seeking out that content. So that's part one. But in really driving people, we look at organic content channels. On social, Instagram is huge. We know that it is a home for cannabis content in a lot of ways. Producing a variety of content there, keeping a really heavy content marketing focus, obviously with a strategic output on that. So for us, it may be trying to drive that initial purchase and then moving that initial purchase, if it's physical, to an online purchase, and then moving from an online purchase to a delivery order. We don't necessarily assume that people can make the jump all the way. A lot of new customers are, but still we have to think about that. But for us, it's all of the channels to get you into our marketing flow, right? And then we work the retention funnels. We work cross-selling, side selling, and ultimately fulfillment method selling from there. So it's using the traditional things that you have to because you don't have access to a lot of things, driving a really heavy content program. And then once you get them into your funnels, into your CRM, working that personalized marketing to get them where you want them to go, whether that's SMS and loyalty, like Spring Big does a great job with, whether that's driving conversion across creative and exploratory shopping, which is something that's going to be, I think, really exciting moving forward, is deeper shopping experiences. But yeah, it's augmenting the one hand that's tied behind your back with the things you have and really doubling down on them with creative and with brand and ultimately A/B testing everything as much as humanly possible.
So what I'm hearing is content is king. Nothing new there.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's cannabis is a reality that when you get limited in what you do, the things that work well in other industries are typically magnified a lot of times. So there is a really interesting sort of like learning there of sometimes it isn't broke other places and it's going to be functioning really well here. And sometimes there are unique market things that you have to look at. But for us, drive the content, build the brand, build the experience, and then guide them on the journey that you're looking for.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Jeff, this is a question for you, Jeff Harris over at Spring Big. Could you take us to the inflection point that took you from being a $1 to $3 million company that Jeb said that so many tech companies get stuck at? Can you talk about what that inflection point, was there a special day, a special moment where it really just kickstarted the scalability and your wide scale reach? Was there a moment that you could talk about?
I would say there was a period, and I think the period of time was, as we were going through 2008, after we raised our seed round in 2017, and we were continuing to evolve and grow in 2018. I think when we raised our A round in the late fall of 2018, it really gave us the capital that we needed to really double down and accelerate on the growth that we were looking for. And I think so I would say probably end of 18, early 19, and we started seeing in 19, we started seeing tremendous growth because we had built a good foundation. We did it with the capital that we had available to us. And then when we had more capital, we were able to build on that foundation, quite frankly, without messing it up. And I think that really helped us a lot. So I think 19 was probably that big year for us where we saw tremendous growth in 19 because we had a nice base. We had some great customers, and we started getting that word of mouth that we really needed, where people were coming to us. We probably get about 100 inbound leads a month coming into Spring Big. And I think that's because we've been doing a good job, and clients talk about us, right? And people want to know more. So I think 19 was the year, and I think what catapulted 19 was our ability to raise a good amount of money at the end of 18 to help us with that.
There you go. Perfect. I think I remember that fundraise. I think Arcview and you and Spring Big worked together on that. Awesome. And Jeb, last question for you. And so just building on the theme, we talked about how when you were looking at the space, you talked to more than 40 companies, and it was really the professionalism of the teams behind Spring Big and GrowFlow that really tipped the scale for you. That was a tipping point for you. But beyond the team, are there certain subsectors within cannabis that you have a particular preference to, or you say absolutely no way? I mean, you said earlier that there was already so much focus in seed to sale and tracking and point of sale and things like that. Are there other sectors that you would like to see more focus on?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, we have about 15 buckets, and we haven't invested yet in about 13 of those. So we're trying to do everything we can to try to find the leader in each of those technology spaces. And I guess just for clarity's sake, we don't feel like we can do anything with companies that touch the plant. We feel as though we've got to do. This is the only way we've been able to get our institutional investors comfortable with this. So, we feel like we have to be super careful on what we do there, or we won't be able to keep the money we have or, attain new money. But the bottom line for what we're focused on is companies that have built something unique. I've said this earlier, they have a long-term sustainable competitive advantage. They have very high retention. So, net negative retention is in the 120% range. They have built strong ARR. They're able to get payback very quickly on the customers that they attain. So my main point is it's all the traditional SaaS metrics. So it's a little bit less about those 13 buckets, more about people who've gotten to scale, more about companies that really do have a shot to own their segment of the market because they have built something very special. And I agree with everything that's been said. It is, you can have a very strong product and have really bad service and the company won't succeed, and vice versa. So if you have those two together and you have something really unique that works, then that's something we want to be a part of.
Absolutely. I know at the end of the day, you need to build a strong business with good fundamentals at the end of the day, right? All the similar SaaS metrics that you're looking at, we take a look at the same things as well. Sure, I mean, some level of cannabis expertise needs to be involved. As I like to say, it takes the suit and ties and the tie-dyes, right? To really build a good business in this industry. But at the end of the day, it needs to have some strong fundamentals. So thank you, Jeb. And with that, we'll conclude the audience Q&A there. Thank you so much. Again, sorry if we couldn't get to your question, but we will be launching a poll very soon if you're interested in connecting with any of the presenters further for any one-on-ones there. But Jeb, Jeff, Chris, thank you so much for your time and all of your wonderful insights and answering all those questions and taking us to another step forward towards Cannabis 2.0. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right,
Thank you very much.
And I hope those in the audience will stick around for just a minute as we have a few closing thoughts. Let me pull up my screen here. All right, and so we'll also be launching a poll now as well. And please do take a minute to fill out this poll as I talk about some of the upcoming events that we have here at Arcview. Your feedback is truly valuable to us. It's what helps us guide our decisions on what sort of calls and what sort of webinars that we should organize next. And also in the future, what sort of live events that we'll put together next as well. So really do appreciate your feedback on these polls. But the very next, what I'm excited to announce is Arcview Ignites. And so you may have gotten a message about this earlier this week, but Arcview Ignites is a new program that we're launching specifically for entrepreneurs who are just getting started and as you heard on this webinar today, are thinking about which sectors to launch their business into. Or maybe you're already built a business and you're ready to look for funding, but you've never done that before. You're not sure exactly how to speak investor, as you will. Well, we have packages of all kinds for entrepreneurs anywhere where you are in your journey. Erica has been gracious enough to put the link in the chat here as well. So click on that, save that somewhere, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have about this new program, Arcview Ignites, to help entrepreneurs through their journey. In terms of events, the next one that we have coming up is on the 1st of October, launching October with a workshop led by law firm Zuber Lawler on building and owning your brand. We heard so much about brand building here on this call. We'll be taking a deep dive with really actionable insights that you can take away on October 1st for that workshop. So visit arcviewaccess.com to register. Well, of course, we'll be doing all of our normal marketing around that as well. But visit arcviewaccess.com to stay up to date on when you can sign up for that. And on October 5th, one of the really important parts of Arcview is the Women's Investors Network. And that's what WIN stands for, Women's Investors Network. And we host these bi-weekly meetings with women in the industry to talk about not just women's specific issues, but really just to highlight female leadership in the cannabis space. It's an issue that's near and dear to us. And so we have a panel with some of the leading beverages in cannabis with Kikoko and Shoki to talk about their experiences and building a brand, not just for women, but by women as well. So please tune in for that on the 5th of October. And stay connected with us as well. Whether you're looking for further insights, visit arcviewmarketresearch.com. And right now we're running a promo for $100 off on our leading market research report, the State of Legal Cannabis Markets. So visit arcviewmarketresearch.com to to take advantage of that discount there. And join us on LinkedIn as well for Arcview members. If you type in Arcview Lounge on LinkedIn, you can request access if you're an Arcview member of any kind, whether that's WIN, investor, founder, and join us there. And that's where you can collaborate with your peers, talk about topics that are relevant to you, and just stay connected in between these lovely webinars that we've been hosting. And with that said, I want to thank everybody for your time and attention today. We'll be leaving this poll up for a few more minutes so that you can fill that out here. But thank you so much, and hope to see you on October 1st for that workshop with Zuber Lawler. Until next time, this is Louis Hahn signing off. Thank you.